Hi, Martha Bolton. Welcome to Lights Camera Author.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Now, your new book is called Dear Bob, and these are letters that some of them Bob Hope wrote to GIs in World War II, and a lot of them were the GIs writing to Bob Hope.
Right, right. It's their correspondence back and forth, um, and sharing their hearts and sharing their laughs and anything else that came up during that time. They would tell Bob. He was their buddy.
A lot of people, I'm just wondering, a lot of people nowadays, especially the younger set, they don't realize what Bob Hope did. They may have heard the name,
Hmm.
on a documentary program sometime, or in a movie that they've, somebody playing Bob Hope. But he was really the first person to go. Well, he didn't start going overseas. He started going to bases in America, didn't he?
Right. He started out at March Field, uh, May 6th, 1941. And it was a new thing. He would take his radio show to a military base. And he wasn't sure how it was going to turn out. But man, when he got up there and he heard the laughter of the GIs, and it was just, that was his audience. He fell in love with them. And uh, I think that love and that appreciation just deepened over the years, and they went from celebrity GI to just really being pals. And he called them, they were his sons and daughters a lot of times in the letters, and they'd ask him to officially adopt them. So he would write them as his and sign it dad. And it was just such a unique relationship that comes across in the letters. It's deeper than anybody could realize.
It's not. There's not really anybody nowadays doing that on a large scale basis like Bob Hope did.
Right. There are people that are entertaining the troops for sure, but not to the nobody did it like he did. Not to the extent he did it 50 years, and just that connection that he had with them. I don't think you can duplicate it. They were just best friends.
My father served in World War II,
Oh,
and he told me, well, whenever Bob Hope was on TV, we had to watch Bob Hope. And he once told me, he said, this was the only guy who really cared about us during World War II. He said he came over and he entertained us. He actually got to see him, he said once.
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I imagine there's like millions of people out there who have seen Bob Hope, but that was, and everybody has a personal story, it seems.
it does. And if they didn't get to see him, they knew a buddy that got to see him, and so then they have that story to share. He would not only go where the thousands were waiting for his show, but he would go to the small camps, and those that saw him in those small, they couldn't believe that this great Hollywood celebrity would come all the way out to where 20 of them were at, or 50, and he'd perform from the back of a truck. It didn't matter, a makeshift stage. He'd perform everywhere. He'd just, and it'd be the same show. He'd do just as good a show for a handful as he would for the 38,000 that are up on the side of a hill.
And a lot of people don't realize he would go into dangerous areas. Imagine he was almost killed a couple of times on these trips.
Yes, he had some close calls, and in fact, the people that were with him would be trying to tell him, well, that's not safe, we shouldn't go, and he'd go, we could do it. Just either, however they went, but a lot of times it'd be flying, and it was bad weather, but there was this group of guys waiting for the show, and he'd go.
Now, now I know that your book deals primarily with the correspondence during World War II,
Right.
but a lot of, but I want to let people know that Bob Hope, like you mentioned earlier, he did it for 50 years. He did it not just for World War II, but also for the Korean War, Korean conflict, whatever they want to call it, the Vietnam War,
Hmm.
and then the Persian Gulf War.
Right.
So he did not just sit back on his laurels and say, "Okay, I've done enough." You really had to drag him out of there.
And his last military show, he was 87 years old, and he's climbing in and out of helicopters. He's going out where the battlefields, and 87 years old. He could have been cruising down to Rio and having a great time, and he had lived his life. He had done enough, but
Exactly.
and the troops were over there, and he was going to be there too.
I was reading some of the letters in your book, and one struck me. Uh, it was written by a woman on behalf of her husband who had seen Bob Hope. And her husband had written home to her. And then she's writing to Bob Hope, I think the next week, saying that her husband had been killed in action.
Mm,
And that's the kind of attachment these not just GIs, but their families also
right. And
found.
and they felt a connection because, in fact, it may be the same letter we're referring to, but I know it's in several letters where they said, since you saw him, you
Mhm.
saw him after the last time I saw him, you saw him since. So I feel like I should tell you, what happened. Just
What's
send
your
it.
and he wrote back. I mean, that's the amazing thing in today's world. You
Yeah,
have you have him writing back to these soldiers,
right. And their
and
families, he would write
family.
to their families. In fact, sometimes the soldier would give Bob their phone number, their mother's phone number, to call home when he got home and let them know that he had seen them, and Bob would do it. And sometimes they didn't really want Bob to say what shape they were in, if they were in a hospital or something, because they were trying to save their family from knowing that.
Hmm.
But he would do it. He'd come home and just spend hours calling the numbers that he had, calling their moms, their dads, their husbands.
What made you decide to do a book like this?
Well, when I found out about the letters, it was when Bob was alive, and we were working on a show, and they came up, and I just, in reading them, I was just amazed at, again, the depth of their relationship and it coming across. And so I talked with Bob about that they would make a good book, and so he told me to talk with Linda, and Linda had grown up with these letters, and they meant a lot to her as well. So we had meetings, we worked on it, started working on it, and then things get put aside in show business. You get working
Mhm.
on this project and that project, but we always wanted to get back to it. And then Bob passed away, and but it was burning in both our minds and hearts. And a few years ago, she emailed me and said, "Well, would you like to go back to that project and finish that book?" And I couldn't believe it. I was so excited, and it just poured out of me. By then, the letters, they used to be at his house, but by then, now they were up at the Library of Congress.
Mhm.
And so I would go up there and finish going through the letters and uh, making the selections, and we would pass the manuscript back and forth, and got it finished. And it was going to come out last year, but uh, it came out now, which is really, considering the last year, the year everybody had. We are so ready for hope. And uh, Bob was always known for his timing, so I think he had perfect timing and when this book came out. So,
And I believe you said 1941 was the first time that he appeared. So
well, in a military
in a
setting,
military,
yeah.
and now it's
Mhm.
2021. So you've got the quick math here, 80th anniversary of it. You know,
Yeah,
so
yeah, that first show. So it he knows what he knows. He's aware.
you mentioned Linda, and I want to let everybody know that Linda is Linda Hope, who is Bob Hope's daughter,
Right.
and she is really the co-author. You list her as co-author of the
Hmm.
book now,
Right.
and so yeah. I mean, you said she contacted you, and I mean, apparently she's she never forgot about this project.
Yeah. Yeah. We both just once we got into it, you just knew that it was a book that needed to be out and for people to see. And there was so much history. There was so much insight into Bob's heart, um, and into the GIs. Uh, and it's funny. It takes on an emotional roller coaster. The letters are funny. They're informative, and they'll tug at your heart and bring the tears. So
Now
it,
he
mhm.
also, now it wasn't just him, because the letters also refer to, and he was always the first to credit his supporting players also, Jerry Colonna and
Right,
Francis Langford,
right,
and excuse me, he even mentioned in one of the letters Bing Crosby.
right.
you know
Yeah, he was very good about doing that and giving, uh, you know, due credit to those that were standing on stage right next to him and ducking the same incoming. So it was a team, definitely.
Do you have a favorite letter that you found?
You know, one of my I have a lot. I have a lot. I'll read this one. Um, yeah, just it's pretty touching. Dear Bob, you've never heard of me and have never seen me except as one in a group, but I'm writing this nevertheless in hope that you yourself may actually read it. I know all this stuff about how many letters you people receive and know you must be darn tired of it. However, this is a fan letter too. A fan letter not to gush over how magnificent you were in some picture or how clever you sound on the radio, but to try to express my best but to try my best to express the very, very deep appreciation we fellows have for your swell job. You were with us. You know how lonely we get, starved for a couple of words from a guy who knows what the latest is because he just came from the old country. The fellows and I saw you put on shows, one in Tunis and one at our outfit, the 97th Bomb Group. When we left that show, Bob, we went back to our tents and were fortunate that no two lived in the same tent. I sat down on my sack and let them come, and I'm not ashamed of it. Do you think I was alone? I know at least 200 guys didn't get dust in their eyes at once. It felt great, too, to be able to have a vent for the stored up feelings we had had for darn near 2 years. I don't want to make this too long and boresome, Bob, but I could go on and on like this for 15 pages. Sure, we like your pictures, but the other you hits us where it counts. And this isn't entirely you, Bob. This type of letter is the same reality, really sincere letter that almost any GI would write to Bing Crosby, Betty Hutton, Jack Haley, Francis Langford, and a couple of thousand others who get in and bring the chins up off the belt buckles.
That's amazing. That is really amazing. And a lot of people don't realize also, not just he didn't just perform shows, but he went to the field hospitals or the VA hospitals
Right,
and met and talked with each person who was almost every person who was in there.
right. And he didn't want them to see the troop, Bob's troop. He didn't want the GIs to see them cry. They, their mission was to make them laugh, put a smile on their face, and then when they would leave the hospital, then they uh, usually break down outside. But
Mhm.
they just brought joy and home and laughter, and did whatever they could to just get get the wounded, get their mind off of their situation, and bring them hope and bring them that feeling that they're a little bit closer to home, because of Bob Hope is standing there, and he represented home.
It's funny you mentioned that because I don't know if it was Frances Langford or one of the girls who were later in the I say girls, I'm sorry, women
Uh,
who were later on the later shows, but it was one woman who told him that I can't do this. I
yeah,
can't, and he took her aside and said, "You are going to do this, and you're going to do it because these guys deserve it."
right,
You
right.
know,
And
and
and it was hard to fight back those tears. It's hard just reading the letters and fighting back the tears, much less looking into their eyes and going from bed to bed and not show your emotion. So
exactly, and
yeah.
now, now when you were creating when you were writing first starting off, did you meet with any of the people who were with him on on the tours? I
Well,
think.
yeah, I would either we had met with them in the shows or connected through the mail. A lot of the entertainers that uh, were were serving at that time as well, and they would give us stories to use in the book, like you know. So Norman Lear, Kirk Douglas, they they just you just knew everybody had such respect for Bob Hope that um, I don't think I ever got turned down. Yeah.
Did you see anybody? You see anybody? I know that Robin Williams, I know, did a lot of, and I want to say, oh gosh, name of senior moments here. Steve Martin also went
Yeah.
overseas,
Yeah. Hmm.
but they were. I remember that Robin Williams wanted to go with Bob Hope, and Bob Hope said, "Don't know about your humor," you know.
Oh, yeah. I know. Uh, but I mean, I just respect anybody that went and served in that way. It was a real act of kindness
Yeah.
and support that, but nobody did it like Bob.
Yeah. Now this is not
And
your
for as long, yeah.
this is not your first Bob Hope book. I mean, the you had an earlier book out about Bob Hope too.
Right. Gene Parrott and I wrote Talk About Hope,
Hmm.
and then he shows up in different books that I've written. I'll slip in a Bob Hope story every once in a while, and then the television shows. Of course, that was with him for 15 years, so we did
Yeah.
a lot of shows.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, and I think I've seen every single one of them. Well,
Well, bless you.
I had to. My dad had made us watch them.
Yeah, I grew up watching them too, and then to realize, that's him sitting in the makeup chair and you're handing lines to him or whatever. I mean, you just pinched yourself. You couldn't believe that you're actually here writing for Bob Hope.
Well,
Pretty incredible.
that is incredible. Well, Martha, thank you for being with us tonight. Light on Lights Camera. Also, the book is Dear Bob, and it's correspondence between Bob Hope and the GIs who served in World War II. And it comes out, I believe, comes out today, doesn't it? This is March 8th. We're recording this, or maybe it's March 16th. It comes out.
It was going to come out on March 15th, and
Okay.
they gave a little bit early release, and so some people are getting it now. And CBS did a nice piece on Sunday morning on it, and so it's been it's doing really well right now.
Excellent.
So and it's in its second printing already, and it hasn't even officially been released. So that's pretty good, I think. So they tell me.
Congratulations.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I tell you what, and you can get it at Amazon.com, or if your brick and mortar store is open, you can go out to your local bookseller And Martha Bolton, again, thank you for being on Lights Camera Author.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.